Hello, hello, my fellow YouTube mini explorers. New area this morning, or today. I shouldn't say this morning because it's actually late afternoon. Notch Hill in Nanoose Bay. Now, actually, it's not that new because I have been here before, but it was about 20 years ago, so I guess in some ways it is new. I don't remember anything about that time, except that there were quite a few arbutus or madrone trees up here. So Notch Hill is quite a large hill that overlooks the eastern shores of Vancouver Island. So this is somewhat of an exploratory trip, but I found some beautiful little meadows here, mostly Gary oak and arbutus trees. Now there aren't any really large ones, most of them are pretty small. And I would imagine there's some really nice little wildflowers up here in probably in the next few weeks, I would imagine, like camassia, shooting stars, stuff like that. So I thought I'd come up here and see what kind of view it offers. You know, sometimes these places, like I looked online, they offer a great view, but it might not necessarily be that photogenic, if you know what I mean. So the only way to find that out is actually come to the area and check it out for yourselves. So let's get a hike to the top of the hill and see what I can find up there, and hopefully I can find a couple of compositions. All right. Right, I can't believe it. I actually found a composition. Amazing. It's so chaotic up here, and the lighting right now is nothing really special. It's just, you know, the usual flat lighting that I've been getting in pretty much every one of my videos. I mean, I might get some evening light, but it's not looking terribly good right now. But the composition that I found I quite like. Now, the hardest part that I'm finding is trying to get up high enough so that I'm looking down on the scene rather than across. And I've mentioned this in a lot of my videos. When you're looking up at something, then you tend to get quite a bit of the sky in, which isn't a problem if it's an interesting sky. But in this case, it's just, you know, pure blown out white. So I want to try and avoid that as much as possible. And unfortunately, I brought my smaller tripod rather than my larger one, which goes up quite a bit higher. That's one of the good reasons to buy a larger tripod than you think you need, because a lot of the times, you know, you'll be on a slope like this. Like this one's not very steep, but you imagine if you're on a steep slope and you have to set up your tripod on it, then all of a sudden your tall tripod becomes quite short, because, you know, you've got to lengthen one or two of those legs and then shorten the other one. And in this case, I'm just on a very slight hill, but even with this tripod, you know, I've got the legs pulled right out, and you can see that it's quite low. Ideally, it would be nice if it was up here. But, you know, you have to make do with what you have at the time. Now, this composition I quite like, and actually, why don't I show you on the back of my camera and you can kind of see what I'm thinking here. Okay, now, I've decided to go with a vertical. The horizontal doesn't quite work, but as you can see, I've found this really neat looking arbutus tree that's quite gnarled, and it's got some dead fall in the foreground that I want to kind of include in the composition. You may notice this tree, there's a branch that kind of overhangs at the back there. I want to make sure that that is separated from the foreground, and that's why I kind of have to raise myself so that you can actually see the whole of the branch. I also want to include this kind of gnarly branch up here, and to do that without including the sky, again, you know, I had to get up as high as I could. So I really like the composition. I'll probably end up cropping it a little bit, possibly down here to the 4:5 aspect ratio, just below here. But yeah, I quite like the composition. As I said, the light is not terribly interesting. It's quite flat, so there isn't any interesting light going on. But I might be able to do something in Lightroom or Photoshop just to kind of, you know, bring out some of those details that I want and darken other areas, similar to the other images that I've had videos on where I've processed them. So anyway, that's the composition. I'll work with that and then possibly try and go with something a little bit more creative than that, or find something else that strikes my fancy. All right. This is a lovely view up here. I think I'm on the very summit of Notch Hill here, and you can see back here, over here, that's the east coast of Vancouver Island, and that's the community of Parksville. And then you can see the rib of, well, kind of rib of mountains. That's up the kind of central part of Vancouver Island, goes all the way up to the north coast. But it's a pretty spectacular view from up here. Photographically, as I said before, I'm not sure. I mean, under the right conditions, I'm sure it might be a pretty decent shot. I really love these Gary oaks down here. They're covered in this moss. And then behind me here, there's some really great arbutus trees. But I gotta be honest with you, I'm having a hell of a time finding a composition. I found that one composition, and I haven't been able to find anything else. I'll see something in the distance, like a grouping of arbutus, and think, oh, that looks really good. And then you get up close and it's like, not so great. Anyway, I'll keep looking around for a little while longer. If I can't find anything, then I'm going to call it a day. And I'm going to head out tomorrow morning. So hopefully tomorrow I can find something in a different area. All right. Hello once again, everybody. Now then, this is my type of photography, and the reason why it's my type of photography is there's my van and there's my subject matter. Not very far to hike today. If you're wondering where I am, I'm at a little place, or a little waterfall just outside of a hamlet called Shawnigan Lake, and it's kind of southeastern Vancouver Island. Now, I have been to this waterfall be 2 years ago now, and there wasn't an awful lot of water coming over it, so I thought I'd come back to see if there's any more water, and there seems to be a bit more than last time, so I'm going to stay here for a little while and take a few shots. But rather than just take my usual photographs of waterfalls, I'm going to do a little bit of an experiment, and I'm going to do a little bit of a poll. I'd like to take shots of this falls at different shutter speeds and kind of get your views on what shutter speeds you like water to fall at. Some people, like myself, quite like the silky kind of effect, but then there's other people, mostly old school, that don't like that silky effect at all. Now, to be honest with you, I mean, I do it on purpose, but when I was shooting 4x5, a lot of the times whenever I was photographing a waterfall, I'd be stopped down to f45 or more. I'd be using ISO 50 film, so you didn't really have a choice in your shutter speed. Sometimes you're talking minutes, so of course any water that's falling for a number of minutes, it's going to come out quite blurry and kind of have that silky effect. But of course, nowadays with the higher ISOs and the quality of the higher ISOs, we have a much more choice in shutter speeds that we use. Now, I've always kind of stuck with the slower shutter speeds because I really do like that effect. But it was actually a comment that I received a few weeks ago on a video, and the fellow, I can't remember his name, sorry, he stated that he really hated that slow shutter speed, and he thought that a 30th of a second was a good shutter speed to use on his falling water. Now, of course, you know, it's all personal preference, but I figured I'd do an experiment and kind of see what you guys prefer, because I know some of you might prefer that silky effect, and others the you know, the stop motion of the water. So let's see how this little experiment goes. It's a beautiful little waterfall regardless. So Alright, I found a pretty nice composition here from the side. It's almost like a little grotto, and I just love the moss in here. And of course, as soon as I put a polarizer on, it really saturates those greens. So I'll start off with a really slow shutter speed at 1 second, and then I'll go all the way up to about a 30th or a 60th of a second. So I'll take 4 or 5 different exposures. Alright, so I've got my composition, just change the shutter speed, the ISO, and see how it goes from there. All right. It really is quite beautiful in here. So what I've tried to do here is hold the camera up here. It's kind of a bit of a bowl in the foreground here, and of course with the polarizer it really saturates those greens and it gets rid of the reflections in the water here. So I've got this nice bowl in the foreground, and then again I've tried to eliminate as much of the sky as I can. There's a little bit of wind in here, but it's actually not too bad. So the cedar that's right next to the waterfall is moving ever so slightly, but I don't think you'll really notice it in the final image. So I'm using a 16 to 35. I've got it racked right out to 16 millimeter. The sun's trying to come out. It was raining earlier. Yeah, this is a really pretty little falls. So after I've taken this, I think I'm going to go up a bit and try and get a bit of a pano in here. I seem to be in pano mode lately. I went on the other side of the waterfall there, and I couldn't really find anything, so I've hiked up the creek just a little ways, and it's just absolutely beautiful up here. All these ferns growing on the trees here, and the creek continues up for quite a ways. All these mossy logs and rocks all kind of fallen over the creek. It's quite beautiful. And then just behind me here, there's all these trees that are kind of fallen over the creek. There's actually some quite large trees in here. So I'm going to take a few images here, and I'll post them in at the end of the video. It's getting quite late, so I'm guessing this is going to be kind of the end of the vlog for this week. So as always, if you enjoyed it, please be sure to give me a thumbs up, and if you enjoy any of the other content, be sure to subscribe. All right, until next time, I'll catch you later. All right, bye.